Good evening. It just gets worse. You see, the BBC basically blamed October Films, who were making a documentary, for the Dr. Trump clip. And yet, the Daily Telegraph today have revealed that in 2022, Newsnight, which, by the way, used to be one of the most trusted news sources in the country, now Newsnight in 22 played the same game.
To cheer on our brave senators and congressmen and women, and we fight. We fight like hell. And we're going to cheer on our brave senators and congressmen and women, and we're probably not going to be cheering so much for some of them.
This important interruption is brought to you by ExpressVPN. Protect your money and your identity. Click the link in the description or scan the QR code here to get ExpressVPN right now and save up to 73% on annual plans today. Right, let's get back into it.
Two completely different clips. And what the first clip was that Newsnight put out, the second part of that was given 54 minutes after the first part. It is just a disgrace. Here is the most recent comment that we have from the White House. It is now clear that the BBC engaged in a pattern of defamation against President Trump by intentionally and deceitfully editing his historic speech in order to try and interfere in the presidential election. President Trump will continue to hold accountable those who traffic in lies, deception and, only from him, fake news. Now, I think actually fake news was invented by Donald Trump in the first place, but it now seems to have its place. So what we're seeing, folks at home, is, and I said this to you a couple of days ago, this is institutional bias from the BBC. It isn't one outfit, it isn't one firm that have been brought on to make documentaries or anything else. This runs deep throughout the BBC. So let me ask you at home, when is enough enough? When is the time to really do something serious about the charter, about the licence fee? I'd love to get your thoughts. Tweet #Farage on GBNews or email farage@gbnews.com. I'm joined in the studio by Sir Michael Ellis, former Attorney General, by Lord John Cryer, Labour peer, and, crucially, Camilla Tominey. Now, she is of this manor, but she's also of the Daily Telegraph podcast as well. So how did this all come about?
Basically, we'd obviously done the original scoop based on the dossier that was compiled by Michael Prescott, which in turn was based on a report that was compiled by David Grossman, who works for the BBC, about concerns about a lack of impartiality in the coverage of Trump, Gaza, trans stories, British history, and all the rest of it. We know that all landed with my colleague Gordon Rayner last week. At the Telegraph, I present the Daily Tea podcast. That's a daily politics show digesting the day's news. And somebody contacted us, a man called David Chaudoir, who was a graphic designer on Newsnight between 2022 and 2024. He said to us, "There's something about this panorama footage that looks familiar to me. I remember there was a Newsnight episode back in the day when I was working on the show where the same sort of footage was used and it was actually called out on air by a Republican." My brilliant production team went back through the archives. We found the episode. It was June the 9th, 2022. Kirsty Walk is then presenting Newsnight. They put a package together. It's 11 months on from the Capitol Hill riots. They are discussing how the Congressional Committee might conclude the findings about Trump's behaviour. Did he incite it? Did he not? And the same sort of spliced footage appears. And the crucial lines that are married together that did occur, as you say, Nigel, almost an hour apart, are "we will march on the Capitol and then fight like hell." It's a very similar theme. Crucially, and this is how it differs to Panorama, it is called out on air by the contributor who is asked to talk about the issue in general, Mick Mulvaney.
Who was Trump's chief of staff for the last 18 months of his presidency.
OK, but it's crucial to point this out. He was White House Chief of Staff, but by that point he had left Trump's administration because he disagreed with him about declaring the election to be false and indeed what happened on Capitol Hill that day. So this isn't a Trump supporter. This is Mick Mulvaney turning round to the presenter of Newsnight, Kirsty Walk, and said, hang on a minute, if we're going to have a debate about these issues, you can't use clips like that. He actually used the words, you've spliced the speech.
Yeah.
I quote him verbatim.
Yeah.
Your video actually spliced together the presentation. That line about, quotes, "we fight like hell," is actually later in the speech. So what we have here...
54 minutes later.
54 minutes later.
Yeah.
So what we have here is, yes, a different edit to Panorama. Let's be generous to Newsnight. They did include the line about the president urging the supporters to join congressmen and women, etc., etc. But they did make it look as if seamlessly he had said, march on the Capitol and fight like hell.
Well, this is, I mean, for the Telegraph, you know, the odd thing is, kind of, I remember at the time watching it thinking this is all put together, but no one did anything. And a few years go by. So Telegraph have done great work on this. But what happens now, Camilla?
Well, I think this debases a couple of myths. First of all, the suggestion that this was all orchestrated by a right-wing plot of bad actors, coordinated by Robbie Gibb.
Oh, no, it's all Robbie Gibb, surely.
It's all Robbie Gibb. So Robbie Gibb, the former Director of Communications under Theresa May, once described by Emily Maitlis, formerly of the BBC, as an active agent of the Conservative Party. That debases that myth, because this has got nothing to do with Michael Prescott's memo. In fact, they didn't spot it. We've spotted it separately. Yeah. It's got nothing to do with Robbie Gibb. This is seeming to suggest that the editing of clips of Trump's speech on January the 6th, 2021, was done in a sort of consensus of wanting to make it appear like he incited the riots. Yeah. This is suggesting that this kind of group...
the narrative,
it suggests that it's endemic. I mean, we cannot look into the minds of those who spliced the clips, OK? We don't even know who they are. But what we do know is that this suggestion that the Panorama editing was a mistake appears to have been debunked, because we've got 2 instances now of this happening.
And you know what? We'll find more.
And it was called out on air. So you've got a contributor actually saying live on the BBC there's a problem with this clip. Now, back to our whistleblower, David Chaudoir, who was a graphic designer, worked on Newsnight from 2022 to 2024, said that at an editorial meeting the next morning, and you'll be familiar with those, Nigel, you know, you have a dissection of what you did the night before or the day before, it's a post-mortem. He alleges that a producer said, goodness me, that was a bit embarrassing. Who put that clip together? Maybe we shouldn't have done that. And senior bods in the meeting brushed it aside, said there was nothing to see here, and moved on.
Every time you're online, your money and your identity are at risk. Scams now make up nearly 40% of all crime in the UK. That's thousands of attacks every single day. In Britain, someone has their identity stolen every 2 minutes, leaving victims with wrecked finances and years of stress. The threat is real, and you could be next. ExpressVPN is your shield against criminals. It locks down your devices, hiding your personal information and financial details from hackers, scammers, and anyone else looking to exploit you. So whether you're checking your bank, shopping, or just browsing, ExpressVPN makes you invisible to prying eyes trying to steal your money and your identity. ExpressVPN shields your data with military-grade AES 256 encryption. That's the same standard trusted by the US government to guard classified information. This is the highest level of online security you can get. So don't wait for disaster. Secure up to 14 devices at once and get powerful password protection. Real support is available 24/7 because cybercrime never sleeps. Save up to 73% on annual plans today. Every moment you hesitate is another moment you're exposed. Protect your money and protect your identity. Get ExpressVPN right now. John
Cryer of the BBC. We've grown up with the BBC. Yeah. We're similar age. It's been a very trusted source, a pillar, if you like, of our national life. This just gets worse, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, look, like you say, we both grew up with the BBC. In fact, when I was growing up, it was the only thing we watched. We didn't watch ITV. That was quite common in those days. And I think it still is trusted to a large extent, but not perhaps as much as it was. I believe in public sector, public service broadcasting. However, they can't carry on like this. I mean, this is, you know, the same story, 2 different sort of... I keep wanting to go back to the word faked, you know, because it's used a lot.
Fake news.
Yeah, which is not as sort of a phrase I use. But before I came over here, I was just thinking about previous incidents. We had Glastonbury, where they didn't pull the feed on an absolutely
disgusting,
outrageous
wasn't it?
anti-Semitic. I mean, you know, you listen to what they were saying; they're almost like fascist apologists. These people. We've also got, since we're on the subject of Newsnight, there have been a few things over the years which have bothered me about Newsnight. I'll give two examples. I can go into them in greater detail. Do you remember Anjem Chowdhury, who, you know, talking of clerical fascists? He used to appear, from what I remember, he used to appear on Newsnight fairly regularly. How many supporters did he have? A couple of hundred?
Yeah.
Any one of us could probably put together a meeting of 200 people if we wanted to.
So not representative?
No, exactly. And yet, the way that he was paraded as a voice of the Muslim community in Britain, you know, if I was a mainstream Muslim watching that, I'd be thinking, actually, they're sort of making us into a bit of a target. There was another example that springs to mind, and that's the case of Abu Nazabeya, which is probably forgotten now. Do you remember the man who appeared on Newsnight? And he appeared on Newsnight to give a story that the two murderers of Lee Rigby, one of them had been approached by the Secret Services and asked to work for them. This man, Abu Nazabeya, was paraded as if he had something. By the time he finished the interview, there were two, I think, Secret Service agents waiting for him. He was arrested, he did 3 years in prison. I have personal experience of him because he lived in my constituency, my former constituency, for a while, and I had a couple of confrontations, and I can tell you more about this, but which could have got really nasty. I mean, there was me by myself, and there was him and his gang of mates, which you would expect from people like that. Now, I would have thought any research from Newsnight, looking at this bloke who is setting out to undermine security...
So basically, John, you are making the case that the BBC has been pretty rotten for a long time.
I think it's had some very, very serious problems for a long time.
I think he's underclubbing there, isn't he, Michael?
Underclubbing. Look, the Telegraph have done great work.
No, they have, absolutely.
And they are really pulling their weight and beyond. So congratulations to Telegraph, because this needs exposure, Nigel. This is, frankly, grossly unacceptable and has been for years.
Years.
Absolutely years. But the BBC are in utter denial. They're in this state of fantastical disbelief. They seem to be of the view that it's all a sinister right-wing coup attempt against them.
I mean, this narrative that Ed Davies is pushing...
It's
absurd. It's nonsense, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I don't buy that.
It's not borne out by the evidence, so that's the first point.
Also, I think there's something rather pernicious in blaming good journalism for exposing bad journalism. And at the end of the day, you know, I've been through my career and I've often encountered extremely lofty people at the BBC suggesting that they're a cut above the rest. We've actually seen them all come out of the woodwork this week and try and justify what is the unjustifiable.
There's no contrition at all.
From the Telegraph audience's point of view, and maybe this is shared by GBNews, and of course, if GBNews had spliced footage like this, we would not have heard the end of it.
Ofcom would have closed us down.
But my central point is actually Telegraph readers do not want the BBC to be destroyed. They just want it to be better.
Yes,
that's all we're asking for here.
I also grew up with the BBC and relying on it.
I think we're all the same in that regard. Yeah.
But the fact, well, I'm much younger, of course.
Of course.
You're 28, aren't you?
I'm only 28. But look, it's the groupthink, isn't it? That's where you see the groupthink, where there's basically London-centric, sort of liberal leftist mindset, proven by the fact that someone did an FOI once on the BBC and found that the newspaper that was most supplied at Broadcasting House was The Guardian.
By far.
By far. And I think, look, the reality of the matter is there are, frankly, numerous occasions where left-wing people have been put into positions of authority at the BBC. As soon as one person of a conservative orientation is in there, it's somehow unacceptable and outrageous.
The whole thing is ridiculous. But you know one thing, folks, whether you're watching at home or in the car listening to this, it is very much the advantage of GB News. Now, a BBC spokesman said, "The BBC holds itself to the highest editorial standards. This matter has been brought to our attention and we are now looking into it." I shouldn't laugh. But maybe, Camilla, one of the reasons GB News is doing so well, including, and you're enjoying coming on Sunday mornings and doing your bit, and the channel is growing and growing and growing, is that the BBC are so bad, they're making it easy for us.
Well, possibly so. And I shall continue to add some discerning journalism and grill politicians of all hues. Reform included, Nigel Farage.
Gosh, there we are.
On my show on Sunday morning at 9:30.
Well, given that warning from Camilla, we best take a break.